Tesla has reported a staggering 71% drop in net income for the first quarter, falling short of analysts' expectations. Revenue also declining 9% to $19.3 billion, driven by a significant slump in automotive sales across key markets such as the US, China and Germany. So what is going wrong and how much of it is linked to Elon Musk's political activities? For more, we're joined by Gastwirth from Unearthing Opportunities. Great to see you. So why did Tesla's Q1 deliveries fall so far below expectations?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the trillion-dollar question there, Aaron. I think there's several factors. I think first and foremost is competition. If you look at competition overseas, it is incredibly intensive, especially if you're looking in China. You have very strong competitors. In the US, you certainly have a mixed market now with some people who loved Tesla previously now are against Musk giving his political allies. But ultimately, I don't think that's the biggest factor for this particular quarter. I think that will have future impact. I think this was purely based on incumbent competition from the likes of BMW, Mercedes, and others in the EV space. And then ultimately, I think Tesla is just right now between a rock and a hard place.
So if it's BMW and Mercedes, they're both German companies, tariffs will impact them. Won't that mean things will get better for Tesla?
I mean, if we all of a sudden continue to see purchasers here go for those, yes, that could potentially benefit that company. However, if the likes of the domestic, if it's a Ford or if it's any of the GM branded EVs, I mean, clearly that would have an impact as well. So there's still a lot to be seen in terms of what is the root cause. But I do think the environment is going to get tougher for Tesla with this bifurcation of Democrats and Republicans and the supporters of Tesla as a company. So, I think we're getting closer to the worst that we've ever seen in terms of looking at people who back Tesla. I think there's a lot of, Republicans that like it and Democrats who used to love it, who drive their cars, who I don't think will be purchasing another. So we'll see what happens. But ultimately, I think the competition is just starting to intensify. And I think the sentiment is just getting worse now.
Brad, what I find interesting here is the widening gap between production and also deliveries. What do you think that indicates?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, they're building inventory and they're trying to get rid of these products. I mean, one of the things that's been a concern over the last several quarters is we've seen prices continue to get slashed. And I mean, look at the operating margin and the margin of this company. I mean, it's been halved over the last couple of years. I mean, we've seen prices go down dramatically. We've seen profitability get slashed. I mean, if you look at just this current quarter, EPS is almost like 30% of their original expectations. So, I mean, this quarter was a disaster. And I think what you just pointed out, Aaron, is a great point. I mean, that gap is something we can't ignore and something we have to pay attention to.
So price cuts that we've seen announced over the past few months, also, I believe the Cybertruck is facing a price cut as well. Are those cuts hurting Tesla more than helping at the moment?
I think it's been hurting them for some time, and I've always said when you start competing on price for a consumer products company, that's no good. I mean, you're all of a sudden going to slash your margin and profitability, and we've seen that. I mean, starting at the middle of last year when we started to see cuts just to spur demand, and again, that's never been a good sign for consumer products for any company. And I think we're seeing the slash to profitability taking place dramatically. I mean, the numbers this quarter was really a disaster.
Let's talk about the Musk factor here, because obviously his relationship with Donald Trump, you think about the early adopters, and Musk was helped so much, of course, through the post-GFC rebuilding of the car manufacturing industry by the actions of President Obama. He became a darling with the left, as did EVs. But now, of course, ever since he appeared in Pennsylvania with Donald Trump during the election campaign, things have changed and then taken a turn for the worst as he became the face of Doge.
Yeah, I actually think it's more so when he became the face of Doge than anything else. I think that's really where this downfall started with the negative sentiment. I mean, sentiment is at its all-time low for people who sort of hate this brand right now. And, this has really been one of the American darlings. And, up until you could argue if it was when, he joined President Trump or if it was when he started to really pick on the Doge side and get rid of some federal funding to some major projects. Either or, there's certainly a negative sentiment that's at its all-time low for the company.
It's interesting because when it comes to global revenue, Tesla is nothing compared to Ford and GM. Yet when it comes to share price, for quite a while, Tesla has been higher. Is this not just a come back to earth moment for Tesla?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point, and I think this is what the bears have been saying for some time. I mean, this is a company that, in terms of production, I mean, we're looking at a few million vehicles compared to the likes of several million a year, and I mean, a few million at best. I mean, it's really like 1 to 2 million. But I mean, this has been the concern. The bulls would say that this is a technology company, and the EV is just one part of its arsenal, and that's true as well. But I think the futuristic parts of Tesla that are exciting aren't going to have any impact to revenues or profitability anytime soon. I think Musk is a brilliant, brilliant person. I think they needed him to be more involved with this company. I think it sounds like he's going to get more involved given distractions with some of the government, with Doge and some other things. But ultimately, I think there's going to be a lot of tough times for Tesla in the next few quarters, and I would not be recommending buying the stock here.
And do you think that in the next few quarters, Elon Musk will still be connected with Doge?
It's a great question. I think there's been rumors saying that he is going to, part ways. I don't know. I have no insight into that. I'd be surprised if he fully disconnects. I feel like he did and was very involved, and to be fully disconnected would be somewhat of a major change. But I do see him getting a lot more involved to his day in and day out responsibilities at and companies like Tesla that he owns.
Yeah, great answer. Let's talk about how really the market darling, right? Investors, particularly NASDAQ investors and New York Stock Exchange investors, love shiny new things. Tesla has been shiny. The idea of full self-driving vehicles, EVs, much cheaper to operate, charging stations that the government will back that'll pop up right around the country and then the world as well. Governments around the world jumping on board, Tesla leading the charge. But all of a sudden, it feels like momentum for electric vehicles has started to slide. Do you agree with that? And do you think that that is impacting Tesla's performance?
So I don't necessarily agree with that EVs has lost momentum. I think Tesla as a brand has certainly lost momentum. I think EVs were still in its infancy. I think it's the future. It makes a lot of sense for many different reasons. And I think Tesla used to be considered the best of breed. And, I used to have a Tesla several years ago, and it was great. It was a rocket ship, 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds. But then I started having issues with it. And, I started to have some technology issues with it, and I got rid of mine. And I think people who start to own them and start to realize that the service side has not grown with the production numbers, that's a major issue. And I think also when you look at just Musk right now and where his in terms of support, I mean, again, it's at an all-time low here in the States. And now if you look at from an overseas perspective, now there's also a hatred towards Musk and Tesla from people because of Trump. So I think they're really getting squeezed from all angles. I think the darling is no longer, and I think there's going to be significant pressure in just in the EV space, but for Tesla in particular.
There have been a lot of complaints from owners about the build quality of Teslas, the interiors of them, the fact that the models don't change enough, and then even the kind of glued-on parts for the Cybertruck as well. Talk to us about whether or not Tesla, you think, could sustain its AI and robotics investment with the weakening operating cash flow, because that's the thing we all get excited about.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really important point. I think they will have enough cash flow because of the EV side to sustain the growth of both of those businesses. But yeah, I mean, like if EVs really drop off so dramatically, that's a big concern, because that's going to be the fuel to really build that development of those two areas. I think the EV side is going to continue to be under pressure, for the next few years, if not, continuously. I think the robotic side's interesting. I think that's certainly a big growth opportunity, but we're still years away from that. So, ultimately, I see issues on the EV side with the company. I agree with you. I think the builds have been sort of really lackluster, not that exciting. They don't offer that much, and for the price point, they just aren't as competitive to competitors out there. And I think that's starting to grow up. I think Americans used to just want to own a Tesla. I don't think we have that at all anymore.
There you go. We'll leave it there for now. Brad Gastwirth, appreciate your time as always. Thanks.
Perfect. Thanks, Aaron.